You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. Hello.
Hello.
Well, here we are. We're not super late with this episode.
Just a few days.
But it's episode 4,
Nice.
Season 4 of Love Your Shelf. And I have quite a few book recommendations this time. And almost all of them, or maybe every single one of them, is good.
Yay! Yeah. Didn't know how that sentence was going to end, so that's great.
Yeah, last time was maybe not so great, but this one, very good.
It's still entertaining for everyone else to hear about
the
bad stuff. So.
I hope. Things to avoid.
Yeah.
But I'm going to jump right in because some of these are actually, there's maybe a lot we could talk about. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But,
yeah, girl.
I mentioned last time that I had started a book by Gabrielle Zevin called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
And which, by the way, is from a passage from Macbeth.
Right.
With the whole, sound and fury, that's from the same passage. And the book turned out to be really good. I was really impressed with it.
Good.
And it was, just a little recap, it's about these two childhood friends who, one of them is in the hospital and you find out, there's lots of flashbacks. Uh-huh. So it's actually, sometimes those can be confusing.
Sure.
But it covers a span of about 30 years. But these kids are about 12 when they meet each other. And one of them has been in a car accident and had his leg pretty much destroyed. So he has to have all these surgeries and he's there a lot. And he's isolated and bored. And so.
Right.
And meets this young girl, and she starts to visit him, and they become friends. And then something happens. I'm not going to give anything away. They don't see each other again until they're in college.
Cool.
And then they join forces again in college, and they start working on developing video games. And so I like it a lot because it's sort of, when they're developing the games, it's kind of, they're pretty close to me in age, if it was, in that age range, maybe a little bit older. And so I was familiar with all of the games that they reference.
Yeah.
And I really love, the philosophy of that kind of, game structure and that kind of stuff. And it's all about that. And it's about these games that they create are also very cool and very... highbrow, more of a highbrow type game than what maybe, people consider video games. It's not Pong or something.
Right.
But the artistry that's involved in it, the storytelling and all that kind of thing. And then, it was very good. It was very sad. But, I think some of the best things are often sad things.
Yes.
But it was very, it grabbed me and held on, and I read it really quickly.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I don't always get to do that. I usually, pick things up and read a little bit and then sample a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But this one I just went right through it.
Nice.
And it was very good.
That's great.
And in it, there is a lot of discussion, as I mentioned, about the philosophy and then the self and the mind. And it's very rich in that way. And she references Douglas Hofstadter, who wrote Gödel, Escher, Bach, which is a classic book from, I want to probably say in the 70s, I think is when it was published, about the systems that connect everything, essentially. And so that it's a book about math, basically, which if I'm saying that it's good, then it tells you a lot, because that means that it's more about ideas, I think, than math. And it's more, it's a cognitive science. And,
right.
And he also wrote a book called The Mind's Eye, Fantasies and Reflections on Self and Soul. And so it's, he's concerned with, like your consciousness and your understanding of yourself. And there's another book called I Am a Strange Loop. And all of those I would highly recommend if people haven't read them before.
Cool,
but
yeah.
A lot of people have. But it's trippy, we'll put it that way. It's weighty. It makes you think about your understanding of how, not only how you conceive of you as yourself, but how you perceive the world, and
sounds healthy to me.
Symbolic stuff. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
It's healthy stuff to think about.
Yeah, and it sounds heavy, but he's a great writer, and there's some playfulness to it, and so it's not just like a tome that you have to lug around and slog through, but they're all very intriguing and draw you in.
And I don't know, I always feel sort of free when discovering new ideas about self, world, others. I know that is such a vague statement.
Well, all of those things are, but that's kind of what it's about. It's about big things. It's not about minutia. It's definitely about the crux of things. I
don't know. That's thinking about those things is like work that I don't mind putting in.
Right. And he knows everything about everything, and so he draws from math, art, music. That's what the first one is about, how all of those things connect together.
Yeah.
And so that book, the Gabrielle Zevin book, led me to revisiting these others, and
cool.
So highly recommend it. And then another book that I picked up but put down in favor of those, although it's still good, is called 1,000 Steps, and it's by T. Jefferson Parker, and it's a mystery. It's set in California in 1968, and so it's like hippies, burnouts, surfers, all that kind of thing. And it's about these missing girls, and it's told from the perspective of one of the girls' younger brothers, he's a young teenager on his own who is, delivers newspapers on his bicycle.
Okay.
But he's got kind of like a single mom who's kind of she's kind of disengaged. And so when his sister goes missing, he's the only one who's like really looking for her. And so it's describing that, it sounds almost like a YA book, but it's not.
Yeah, okay.
It's definitely, rougher.
Okay.
And there's the seediness and, all of this, like, on the surface, these people who live these lives of, like, rock and roll and drugs and all this kind of stuff, it seemed, or could seem more glamorous. But he's looking at it from this perspective of this kid who has not engaged in that at all.
Right, okay.
And he just sees how it's, worked against his mother and how his sister's kind of following that path. And I haven't finished it yet. I'm probably halfway through.
Okay.
But it really captures that era, captures the location, and it's, very gritty and it's good.
Cool, yeah.
And then I'm listening to... this one, it's funny because it's called A Carnival of Snackery. And I do...
I want to go.
Exactly. This is my favorite kind of carnival. But I do kind of, like, take parts of it as, like, little snacks. Because it's David Sedaris, who is just the best. He's hilarious.
American gem.
Yeah. Yes. And it's his second volume of diaries. So it's, like, diaries 2003 to 2020. And he reads part of it, and Tracy Ullman reads part of it.
No way, that's funny.
Yeah, so part of the entries are when he's in England, and then he's also. That must be the reason. I think that's why she's reading it in the British accent, but then she also does the characters, and then of course he's got his own delivery, which is the best. Wow. And yes, exactly. And so anytime anybody talks about David Sedaris, I always say, well, yes, that his book, Me Talk Pretty One Day, was the very first audiobook that I ever listened to on cassette.
I love it.
Yeah, how long ago that was. And a friend had given it to me, and I was like, books on tape. my great grandmother has the Bible on tape, but like, who does that?
Right. Now I'm like, I can't go anywhere without an audio
without having it going in my brain. Yeah. And so that was a turning point for me, I guess.
I read Me Talk Pretty One Day in maybe high school or college, but I worked at the library, so it was within the last 3 years. I listened to Me Talk Pretty One Day driving to San Marcos, and was like laughing out loud. Like his sister too, Amy Sedaris, is like, their family's sense of humor is just so special.
Unique is not a unique enough word.
Exactly.
For it.
Exactly. I mean, I know a lot of unique comedians and people with unique senses of humor. Right. But like there's something special.
Simply, set apart.
Yeah.
And Amy Sedaris's books too, which
I don't think I read anything of hers. I totally should.
You should. We have some.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them. There's like a visual component.
Oh, I love it.
So anyway, but his stories about her are also
I know.
fantastic.
Like there's one I think it's maybe in Me Talk Pretty One Day, and I cannot remember details, but it's like her visiting him in their, I don't know, younger days, and something like she would like dress up.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So she at some point acquired a fat suit.
Yes.
And so she goes home for the holidays to visit her family, only wearing the bottom half of the fat suit. And so it's just about like he's talking about how the parents are trying to.
Hey, girl, doing okay?
Yes.
She's like, yeah. What?
What are you talking about?
Oh, it's so funny. Who does that? And I say that with so much love. Like, that's hilarious.
That is commitment to something. I don't know.
I know. It's worth
She
it.
might be exhausting to be around in real life.
Maybe so. There's a great scene. Like, I love so many... She plays so many, like, small parts, just sort of cameos on shows that I've seen. And there's one on a show called Broad City where she plays like a realtor in New York City. And she's showing these, young 20-something girls these like awful apartments in New York. And she's like, they're in this one that has like cement walls, and she's demonstrating how like, she's like, yeah, like you could be like screaming for your life and no one would hear you. See? And she's just like, ah, and, like banging on the wall. Like as if that's a perk. It was a perk.
Right. Oh, great.
Anyway.
She also has a great role in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh my gosh, wait. Hold on.
She plays one of the friends of the rich mom.
Yes!
Oh my gosh. And she also transforms herself.
She really does. Yeah.
But the whole fat suit scenario, what's the funniest thing about it is her brother telling the story, but about like how the parents are so oblivious that they don't get immediately that she's doing this as a get. It's just a very read it. That's what read all of his books and hers.
Yep.
Now with hers, I will say you do have to be on board for the sheer insanity.
She's definitely quirkier.
Yes. Yeah.
Than he is.
And
and maybe
he's kind of trying to he's more like commenting on the quirkiness of everybody around him and himself.
Yes, and does it beautifully. But she's like one of the quirky
living
ones.
it. She's living the life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so then we'll turn a corner here.
Okay.
The next book that I want to mention is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Oh.
Brene Brown is one of those that she's great. she's smart. I like that she's like, direct, and she knows what she's talking about. But she also gets painted with the brush of self-help, women's literature, that kind of stuff, which I don't necessarily agree with. But there is a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, like that's so true. I think that her commentary is, I don't know, for all people, but she gets kind of painted into a corner.
Yeah. And so this book, I feel like a little bit embraces that. Oh, and it's illustrated. It's a beautiful book. It's like oversized and illustrated, but it's basically she defines 87 different emotions or human experiences, and then talks about how to negotiate them. And so, I mean, it's good. I feel like I personally, when it comes to that like kind of self-help, she's I think something more that along what I would read.
Sure.
But I still kind of go more toward fiction for that kind of thing for myself.
Totally. Yeah.
Like,
like self-reflection and
like we were talking about earlier, talking
totally.
about the self and all of this stuff. Fiction does that for me better than nonfiction. But she's still one of the better ones out there. And she has also, done the research. She's not just, getting a ghostwriter to do it while she's like got her feet propped up.
Well, and like I feel
Oprah's
like,
house.
Yeah. Spilling lines to someone on her speakerphone.
Yes, exactly.
And I like how and maybe I'm wrong, maybe this is just how I remember it, but it does feel like she was sort of one of the first people to sort of be shouting about empathy.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I feel like a part of, I don't know, some of it could be that like since then I feel like I've seen a lot of people spouting off about empathy, which I agree with, of course, but it does maybe start to feel watered down. And so I'm sure it is kind of tough to keep that approach and still like be new and fresh. And I've not read the book. I need everyone to know this is all speculation.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, I think you're trying to find a fresh way to look at something.
Yeah.
And she definitely does that. And she has, her diehard fans, which and I fully understand. She's knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, no, because like when her special came out on Netflix, like I remember watching it, and I remember there were moments where, like you said, like she's she doesn't hold back. She's to the point, and I definitely appreciate that. Like there were moments where I was like, duh, like why didn't I think about it that way or whatever. Yeah. So I appreciate that, but yeah, I need to read it. I'll read the book.
I would definitely recommend it. If anybody has liked her work in the past, this is a different kind of look and feel to it because of the format. But
cool.
So
interesting.
Yeah, it takes a new direction. And then the last two, I think, books that I will mention are both by Ian Reid. And he wrote I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which was then turned into a film. And this is I've talked about that one before on the podcast, but that was a weird experience for me because I read it, and then, I don't know, several years later, there was a film that came out, and I didn't know anything about it, but I started watching it, and it's just basically about a couple that's driving down this like highway in the winter at night, and
I remember this now.
Yeah. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, the most intense deja vu. Like, I've heard the story, or I've read this, or seen this before, whatever. And it took me until the end of it to realize I did read this book. And I don't usually do that.
I do it kind of a lot. So.
But the thing is that I read that book like in a sitting.
Yeah.
like in bed one night until 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
And then for whatever
Moved
reason,
on with
it
your
just
life.
that's
how my brain works in a lot of ways, unfortunately.
I'm like that about like certain things, but usually if I'm staying up until 4 a.m. to read a book, you'll remember it the next day.
If it was riveting
and I think it was riveting in a way, but it's also, I think it too, because it is kind of about this, like, just these two characters, and then there's a couple of other characters later. It kind of is more like on a small scale, and the things that happen are much more subtle. They're crazy, if you have read the book or seen the movie, it gets pretty wild, but it's, I don't know, it's just the scale of it maybe.
Interesting, yeah.
But another book that he, I think 3 or 4 years ago, wrote or published Foe. And I'm listening to this one, which I enjoy doing. And whenever I do that, especially for something like this book, I'm like, why do I not always have books going in my brain? You know, I just... I don't know. You just really like the person's voice and the story or whatever.
Love
just
when
really
it all lines up. Yeah.
And so, like I'm thinking of ending things. This one is also about a couple, but there's a science fiction aspect to this one, and it's I don't know. It's kind of a unique approach, and there's going to be. I've already figured that there's a twist, and I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be. But it's basically, it's this couple, they live on this farm, and you get some details, a couple of chapters in that it's in like the near future, so it's not now, or some kind of alternative future. And so they're living on this farm, just the two of them. At the very beginning, they say, nobody ever visits out here, where it's just isolated.
Who's gonna visit?
Exactly. And the person that visits comes and says, the husband is on the list to be selected to travel to space.
Oh.
Not what you're expecting for this farm couple,
No.
And then from there...
When was this list? Where did you get this list? Did he sign
up for this? Who is this guy? And And so it's a first-person narrator of the husband.
Yeah.
And so you only get his perspective and how he sees the reaction of his wife. And then this guy who's like their only intermediary to this, space trip that is going on. It's very good.
Cool.
And
I swear that's going to happen to me in my actual life one day. I've told Nick, he's about to be an engineer, very interested in space, and I've said, I don't ever want you to go to space.
Yeah.
We've all seen Apollo 13.
We've what happens with the wives.
We've all seen every other movie. Yeah. We live in Nacogdoches for the Challenger space shuttle.
Yeah. The spouses don't fare well in any of those movies.
Just, I want you to follow every other dream in your life. I'm just kidding.
Does he want to go?
I don't think, seriously. Okay. I don't think so. I think he'd like to be a person on the ground, maybe. But,
well, that's different, yeah.
But if that happens, if we live in our quiet little peaceful farm and some man is like, hey, Nick's been selected to go to space. I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah. And then it turns into a different kind of story.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, that's really interesting, though.
Yeah, but it's very, it's mysterious in like an existential way, because you don't know. It leaves everything so open-ended that you're like, is this guy real? Is this space a real thing?
What's with
why? Are they married? It's just everything is up to be.
Cool.
Yeah, everything is up for grabs.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a question.
Cool. I like that.
And so so it's good. And so it kind of, this is the thread in his work.
Cool.
And then the last book is called We Spread, and and this one, I've always had a kind of, attraction resistance to books like this. And this is all, again, of this theme that we're kind of talking about today of yourself and identity and your mind. And so in We Spread, there's Penny is an artist, and she's older. She's been in the same home for decades. She's surrounded by all the, like, her things and all of her things that remind her of other things. And then she has a partner who's passed away years earlier, and she's, it starts out she's remembering them. And,
Okay.
but then she gets taken to a long-term care facility.
Oh.
And at first, she kind of blossoms, and even though she'd kind of been losing her grip, she starts to paint again, and all of this kind of stuff. But then she starts to have this, like, bad feelings of...
Oh.
Yeah. Of just something that she doesn't trust, or that's uncanny, or, yeah. So,
Okay. I'm intrigued.
she doesn't know, like, she starts, again, it's kind of like these other stories, is like,
kind of anything's up for grabs.
why is she in this place? What is it?
Yeah.
Like, so it's, I do like that kind of thing.
I do too.
A lot, yeah.
Surprised me. Although, a lot of times, it's kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
If somebody does it well, I love it. I love it so much.
It's tricky because either you don't give a complete answer and you leave it a little bit blurry, but sometimes that's not good. Or you have the wrong ending, or you choose the wrong solution.
I'm always like, I swear, if the answer is aliens, I'm gonna be so mad. Because I just feel like that's such a cop out.
Yes.
In many stories.
I have said that. In fact, I said that one time about in like a seminar class in school. I was like, if this is a ghost, I'm out of here.
Yes.
I don't want
it's
to
like you want it to be, I don't know, you want it to be able to be explained, but it still needs to be something fresh and exciting, and I don't know, and it's like a lot. It's tricky. Most everything has been done, so give us something fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line.
Well, after this, past week and like going forward, I'm bound to have my own self completely figured out. And
sounds like it.
Yeah, wrapped up. So
yeah,
just give me a few more episodes of this show I'm going to tell you about.
And we're gonna change this podcast to just like Everything You Need to Know by Crystal.
Yeah, Crystal knows everything. She's figured it out. So after all of this reading, there's only been a couple of things that I've watched in the past week or so. And the first one, I've only seen an episode of it. And let me say that I wasn't super jazzed about it, but I was curious because of the premise. And it's got Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear. Oh. I think Mira Sorvino is anyway. So Courtney Cox plays, it's called Shining Vale. So
okay.
It's on Stars.
Interesting.
And like Vale as in like Vale, Hill and Vale or whatever. It's like
okay.
But she plays a woman who she's got marital troubles, and they move to this new place, and she's convinced that there's stuff going on, like I don't want to say too much because you want to get that, but she becomes convinced that there's somebody else there, and it's kind of got some aspects of Secret Window, where that's once again we've got this unreliable narrator.
Yes,
and of course we've been talking about all of these women in the window on the train stories, and so got a little element of that, but so we'll see.
I'm curious, huh?
I am curious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those that just kind of was under the radar. And then another one, I was reading something else and it said, or some article that said, this new Netflix series has surpassed whatever the last big one was.
Was it Squid Games?
No.
Okay, because I was like, that was big.
No. Oh, in fact, I don't know if we've talked about it. It's the Reacher. It's the one that they were talking about. This one has surpassed Reacher. Which I did watch.
We'll
come back to Reacher because I will talk about that, but I don't think we've mentioned it.
Okay.
So there you go. I thought I had only seen a couple of things, but this was about a month ago that I watched Reacher.
Okay, cool.
But, so on Netflix, Toni Collette, who I love, is in a new series that just came out end of last week called Pieces of Her.
Okay. I don't even know what it's about. I just saw it advertised.
Same thing. And apparently it's taken over #1 or whatever. But it's based on a 2018 novel by Karen Slaughter, who's a super popular writer. And I will give you just the rundown of what happens at the very beginning, because again, it's not going to spoil anything. But it does get your attention and make you want to watch it.
Yay!
And so it opens with Toni Collette is meeting with her daughter for lunch. It's her daughter's birthday, and she's turned 30. And at first I was like, Toni Collette does not have a 30-year-old daughter,
Maybe
but
she could.
So anyway, so they're having lunch, and they're kind of the daughter is unsatisfied with her life, like 30-something.
Don't I know it?
We've all been there. And so her mom's trying to tell her, well, go back to school, go back to New York where you were living before.
Stop it, Crystal, stop it.
Do something.
I will not.
You can do so much more with your life.
No, Mom, Crystal. Just kidding. My mom's not pushing me in any weird direction.
No.
Love you, Jane.
You're doing all of that yourself.
Yes.
So it is, some parallels that you'll probably, you could identify with, but all of us could identify with. But, so Toni Collette's giving her this advice, and then this mom and her daughter come up, and they're, just asinine talking to them. She's like, oh, so bored. And there'd been she'd kind of called attention to the fact that there's this weird guy staring at them.
Cool.
And he walks up and yells out to the daughter of the mom and daughter who had walked up to Toni Collette and her daughter, and pulls a gun out. And he's her boyfriend that she broke up with.
Right, okay.
Trauma ensues. And Toni Collette's response to it is unique. And so it's not like supernatural or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a human response. But I've never seen anything quite like it, I think, because if she's just so much focused on her daughter that she I'm just gonna tell you the little tale,
because I'm on the edge of my seat.
So her daughter has a job as a dispatcher.
Oh, okay.
So she's wearing a uniform shirt. And so when the guy pulls the gun and he's shooting up the place, and it's very visceral. They're in a little tea room kind of diner shop. And the daughter, Toni Collette's daughter, the dispatcher, kind of stands up and is kind of backing away, and Toni Collette climbs over the table and is screaming, get down, and she throws her body on her and holds her down on her daughter.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that is a mom who is really she is in mom mode. And the guy turns their attention to her, and he says, he thinks that she's a cop, and he thinks that she's gonna shoot him.
Toni Collette?
That the daughter with the dispatcher uniform is a cop who's gonna
shoot him.
Yeah, suicide by cop himself. So he's done all of this, and he's
gosh.
like, get up, you know,
He's
shoot
like, come
me.
on. Yeah.
So Toni Collette stands up and says, you know, she's not a cop. She's, you know, she doesn't have a gun. She can't do anything to you. And so he starts getting unhinged and getting very upset. And she says, you know, shoot me instead. So he puts the gun on her. And she's, you know, they kind of battling it out a little bit. And she knocks the gun away. He pulls out a knife.
God, no.
Yes, anyway. And she ends up prevailing.
Oh,
I'll just leave it to that, because everything else you kind of want to see what happens.
Yeah.
But she prevails, and then it just starts a whole kind of...
Wow.
Yeah, like what is up with her? And then her response to everything, her daughter can't understand
Like
what
she's
is going
like,
on
I've
with all
not
this.
Seen you
Yeah, her mom
like
is like
this.
a speech pathologist.
Yeah.
She's mild-mannered and never had anything, you know, out of the ordinary. And so then their story kind of goes from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I guess I've watched half of them. I think there's 8 episodes.
Okay.
And they're all out, but I've only watched the first 4.
Okay, cool.
And I don't know how it's gonna if it's gonna end up satisfactorily, but it was one of those, like, I'm watching it by myself,
beginning, yeah.
and I was like, you know,
Yes,
like actually
yes,
gasping,
yes.
like, wow, okay, they get you, they grab you on that first episode.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that follows through. But
Yeah, me too.
and Toni Collette is great, and
She
there's
is.
yeah, there's other good the girl who plays her daughter, who I don't recall seeing anything in anything else, is also good. So
That's great. Oh, neat. I'll have to check it out.
yeah. And you know, I love it when there's, when all the episodes come out all at once, like
Yes.
they do on Netflix. Yeah.
Ugh, I got stuck watching The Gilded Age, and I want to keep watching it, but I'm so annoyed week to week.
Yeah, I've skipped the last one because I'm gonna kind of save them up.
No,
Yeah.
like you guys have programmed us like this, okay?
Don't take it back.
Don't take it back.
But so speaking of, another one that came out on Netflix that this one apparently has surpassed was Reacher.
Yeah.
And I have never been one to, I'm not a fan of the books, or just
Is that
never got
Jack
into them.
Reacher,
Yeah,
or- okay,
Jack Reacher.
Okay.
And I did recall, like, back when they cast Tom Cruise as Reacher, who's supposed to be 6'5" and enormous, and like that's a big part of his character. That's what he is.
Tom Cruise is like
Tom
5'6".
Cruise played it, yeah. And so I never watched any of those movies, and I've probably only read a couple of the books, and there's a bunch of them, and a lot of people are big fans of it. It's just,
I know know of it.
And so I didn't have anything. I had no, like, I wasn't waiting to see the show. Just, I saw somewhere, like, kind of with this one that, hey, everybody's loving this show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah,
you know?
sure. And you're like, I love it so
Let's
much.
see.
I'm just kidding.
But it reminds, and I could never, like, pinpoint what it was reminding me of, but it reminds me of other stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those where, like, the character, kind of like many detective kind of shows or books, where the character, even though the character is very specific and has all of these, you know, traits that are unlike mine or yours, they still are a stand-in for you.
Right.
And so I think that is kind of, that was the kind of enjoyment that I got out of it, because it's this huge guy. He is actually a big, huge guy.
Yeah.
And I also was like, he's unknown, or he is, you know, hadn't done anything I'd seen him in.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he going to be able to do this? And yeah, he does a good job.
Interesting, yeah.
And then there were some other actors who I also had enjoyed in other like television type roles. Mm-hmm. And but he goes in and just, like, brute force knocks people out, and you're just like, yeah,
that felt good.
Yes, because he's a vigilante, but he's always the right. He's on the side of the right.
Yeah. Well, cool.
And so, yeah.
I need to let off some steam, maybe.
Yeah, and then, you know, I mean, there's, like, it's a mystery, so it's,
Oh, okay.
you know, like,
I didn't realize that. I think I was just kind of like, that's a lot of dude energy. I don't know.
Exactly, exactly. And like the Tom Cruise version of it, yes.
Yeah.
But this guy, like, he's one of these, like, he doesn't even speak in the first half of the episode.
Yeah.
He just, he's not going to say anything. No, he just doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
And they don't even know if he can, like, they don't even know if he can speak because he just shows up in the small town.
Yeah.
And then he says something sometime and they're like, oh.
Oh, you can. You just have to decide.
Right. And so he's like, I'm not trying to get in any shenanigans, but he, of course.
But here I am, I guess.
That's what happens, yeah. And if I'm going to drawn into these shenanigans, then I'm going to come out on top. So,
yep. Well,
watch out.
I want to check it out. I want to, yeah. I feel like we haven't found anything new in a while. And by a while, I probably mean like a week, but.
Yeah. Well, both of those pieces of her and this one, both based on popular genre novels. Yeah. That's kind of what you're getting from it. You're getting that,
I like that. Well, and
it's good.
Like recently-ish, there was a new Harlan Coben Netflix. Oh gosh, I can't think what it was called. The one before this, that I could remember that I watched was called Safe, and it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. Who's the guy who plays Dexter? Michael Hall.
Michael C. Hall.
Michael C. Hall, yeah. He is in it, in Safe, and it was a really fun mystery. And this one, of course, I can't remember what it's called now. Did not prepare, but I was so excited for it. I was like, oh, great, a good, fun new mystery. It's a Harlan Coben, so I'm sure it's like, all the fun that you want from a mystery like that. And it was all right. I don't know. It was just slow moving, and I don't know.
Was it a movie or
It was a series. It was maybe an 8-part series, and we finished it, but I don't know, kept waiting for it to get more exciting, and
Well, that's what I'm a little bit, feeling iffy about pieces of her, because it halfway through and you're like, okay,
it started with the
there's
bang.
A lot of stuff, and then there's layers on layers of mystery, and so it's like, how do y'all even keep track of this?
Right. And like, does that mean they're banking on a second season?
Right. But they still have like, how much more can we unravel?
Right.
We seem to know a lot now,
Yeah.
So it's, you never know.
So they're kind of doing well, interesting.
Yeah. But I have not read that book, so I don't know like what the
any
secret is.
Direction. I wonder what the book's like.
Yeah.
Good old Karen Slaughter.
Mm-hmm. We know all of those writers get picked up as soon as they publish a new one here at the library. So
I had never heard of Karen Slaughter until I became a shelver here, and I was like, are you kidding?
How many do we need?
I know, like, this is a lot. And also, surely this is a pen name, because what are the odds that this mystery writer is named Slaughter?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, lots of good ones in the mystery genre.
I love it.
Well, I think that's it.
Nice.
And so a great week for me.
Yeah, girl.
Good stuff to watch and good stuff to read and
Nice.
listen to, and so I'm happy.
Self-reflection.
Yeah. So this next week I'm going to be doing the opposite of that.
No, just like zone out, think of nothing.
Exactly. You got to have balance in your life.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.